Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and today we're going to be taking a look at the new Maximus IX Apex. Now Apex is a new name in the Republic of Gamers branding or naming scheme, whatever you want to call it. So we will have a quick look at the box and stuff. There is actually some really cool things about it, and we're going to cover them all inside, about the aura, the overclock zone, and the customizable nameplates. There's all some really good, funky stuff going on. But people do say that I neglect what goes on in the box. Although to be fair, when I cover what's going on in the box, people then moan that I spend too much time on it. So in the box itself, we've got a sticker sheet, and this is going out with all of the ROG boards at the moment. So these little round ones are for the centres of your fans, and you've got a load of Republic of Gamers stickers around the outside. This is meant to be a passport cover. This is meant to go on any sort of like credit card size stuff that you've got. I don't know, maybe you've got a library card or something you bleep yourself into at work. You get what I'm on about. Anyway, so that's in there. You get a cardboard coaster. It does have a link on the back so that you can zoom into the forums, but you get a nice coaster for your desk. Then inside you do get your manual guide. You've got your CD in there as well. And then I'm just trying to find it because we're going to do something funny. I keep meaning to do this. Right, so you do get your these so that you can color code any cables. It could be your SATA cables, it could be USBs around the back of your case, anything. At least then, you know, if the specific colors, you're going to be able to grab them really quickly. But you do also get a 20% off coupon for cable mod cables, so if you wanted to do it. Now, I'm going to show you the coupon now, and anyone that uses it or manages to use it, so the first person that gets to use it, please put in the comments underneath, and then send us a picture on the OC3D forum. So you ready? It's totally legit because I'm not going to use this. There you go. So I'd love to hear from whoever manages to use that code first. Yep, they're going to be happy with me. Anyway, so we also get a ROG SLI bridge, but it's a high bandwidth bridge. It is just a plain one, but it's a nice black, you know, kind of monochrome. If you wanted a project, you could cut yourself a bit of acrylic to go over the top, themed with your rig. You could even make it thicker acrylic, so you could put an LED in the side or something. And you could use semi-transparent acrylic as well, so you'd still be able to see the white ROG logo underneath. There's literally, you could spend an afternoon just making something to go on the top of that if you're that way inclined. I mean, the fact that I've just given you loads of ideas for it as well. Challenge has been set. This is very, very funky, but we're going to cover this when we actually get to the board itself. But this is the DIM2 connector, but like I said, I will cover that when we are inside and actually doing the box. Cover it when we're inside. Safe sex, children. So this is your connector for the front panel headers, so your power switch, your LEDs, all that sort of stuff. You can stick them on this before they go in, and then when you drop it onto the board, it means you're not having to fiddle around. You get a CPU installation tool that I still hate. You've got a back plate. Then you get some thermal. No, this isn't thermals. This is your RGB extension, normal M.2 screws, 4 SATA cables, and then this is for the customizable nameplate, which again we will cover more when we're on the inside. But there's your nameplate, and then you've got, are these stickers? Yeah, they are stickers, and these are so that you can customize these. But as I said, we will cover this in more depth when we're on the inside. I got to stop going. Anyway, right. Okay, so here we have our first look at the actual board itself, and I'm wondering if you've picked up on the big kind of change or the big thing that makes this board unique compared to any other motherboards I've ever seen. Have you noticed it? Okay, so I'm going to point it out now. So there are a lot of cutouts around the board, so they kind of go in and out. They say it gives it an aerospace kind of feel to it. Now the naming is all meant to have been Apex. If you think about Apex with when you're racing and that sort of thing. You've got some nice aluminium heads on the top of the heat sinks. They say that again gives it kind of an aerospace kind of feel. It's, to be honest with you, it's very, very different from any other boards that you may have seen or kind of in the past, really. So they've got all these cutouts, so it makes it look that little bit different. And the idea that they say behind it is this is almost like the stripped out race version of a road car. So you have the road car, let's say the BMW M3, and then they normally do that one with like the carbon roof, and it's got a roll cage in the back and no back seats, like the M3 CSL. So this is kind of that idea. So you'll also notice straight away that we've only got 2 DIMM slots. Now it's literally so that the memory channels are much cleaner. It literally has just got 2 memory channels on it. It's meant for really high speed memory and overclocking. It's not meant for, you know, filling up with 32 or 64 gig of RAM and, you know, running massive programs. This is kind of like the stripped down overclocking board. There is going to be an extreme later, but the Apex is kind of the boiled down version of it. Do you know what I mean? With less of the crap in the box and stuff that they end up charging for, but you still get a lot of the overclocking features. Like I said, we've only got 2 DIMM slots, very overclock friendly. They are saying that it's going to be very, very memory friendly when it comes to high speeds, but you do still have the overclock section in the top. Oh, hit the microphone, hit the tripod. So we do still have the overclock section up here. So what we've got is the start button, the reset button, and then we've also got the retry button and the DIMM2 key pin, they're calling it. I'm trying to read from up here so you can see as we're zoomed in. Right, so we've got this is your dip switches for your PCI Express, and that's just so that you can turn the PCI Express lanes off independently. If you've not heard me explain why before, if you have them all full up, and say for argument's sake they might have LN2 pots or water cooling on them, and one of them goes faulty because you've overvolted it or overclocked it too much, then it would stop the system from posting, because this, you know, you might have a faulty one. So you can literally just flick it over and then you can turn it off and the system may be able to post again. I'm just trying to look to see what this is for here, because the product is so new. I've not been sent a reviewer's guide or anything yet. So this is a complicated one, and like I said, I can't see what this is for. Up here we've got the slow boot buttons and dip switches up here. Oh crikey. Just seen that there we go. You've got your LEDs up here, so you've got your CPU LED, DRAM LED, VGA, and then you boot one up here. You do still get the lights here, so you can click this. This is a pin out for the Aura, so you can connect your RGBs to it. There is another one down here as well. And in case you're wondering why am I going to want that if it's an overclocking board? They're kind of saying that it could be a show board as well. You do get some voltage meter pinouts here. You've got a memo K button, horizontal USB 3. This will be a Molex to give you extra power for the PCI Express should you want to run lots and lots of graphics cards. We've only got 4 SATAs rather. And then down in this bottom hand corner, what we've also got is the water cool section. So you've got water flow headers out here. You've got water pump header. You've got a BIOS switch down here. I'm actually having to read to see what's going on as we're doing it, but there's all kinds of stuff all around. You've got light bars, dip switches up here, M.2 light, there's one there. Oh, this is a really cool one. This is one of the things that I've been looking for. This header here, don't get it mistaken thinking that it's broken if you buy it. This is literally for full speed fans. This literally just puts 12 volts through the fans all the time, so that if you're running overclocks and you want a fan blowing down or something, this is the one for you. We do have some more fans over here. CPU optional and CPU fan here. They, I think, are in a properly funky place. I don't like that, personally. That's the AIO pump header there, but having the CPU fans down here, I think is a bit backwards, because you would expect them to be somewhere up in this area so that your cabling can be out of the way. So maybe they don't want it to be like super tidy. You can see here that we do have the centre, this is going to light up. And I think it does have a plastic cover on it, which I'm going to have a play with this and get it lit up and see what's going on. But we do have two 8 pins at the top. You don't need to connect both. It's not like a specific requirement. We can see some more fan headers up here, look. We've got full speed fan, so that's another full speed fan there. And then you've got, that's chassis fan 1 there. If we go around the outside of the board, there's another full speed fan there actually. So the light grey, bluey, greeny ones, they're all full speed. So you've got another full speed there. Then you've got the water pump header there. Chassis fan, water pump is there. That's water flow there. This one is chassis fan 3. And then, like I said, you've got the other full speed. So there's actually a lot of full speed fans on this, considering. Oh, there I go with the tripod again. It's because it's hidden. So, and then if we come round the back, what we can see is you've got the BIOS flashback button, BIOS clear button, 2 PS2s. That's going to be kind of handy because where it is an overclock board, some overclockers still do rely on these. DisplayPort and HDMI if you want to use onboard video out. Then you've also got 6 USB 3s. You've got a USB 3.1 A and C, gigabit Ethernet. You do still get audio out on it, although you can tell by the amount of capacitors that are down here around the audio section that they're blatantly not that bothered about audio on it, and I would kind of agree with that. One of the things I am looking for when we have a look around is you can see that there's no M.2 on the board, but there is a header thing here. You can see that there's a screw and then another screw, and I have to admit at this present moment in time I have no idea what that could be used for or what that is for. There's certainly nothing in the box. I'm going to have to look it up in the manual. Again, this is normally when I would refer to the documentation that Asus give me, but they've not sent any. So we have, oh, there's another chassis fan. There we go, chassis fan 2. So there is one there. Okay, right, having a look around the back. Nothing special around the back. No hidden M.2. Now you can see this DIMM2 connection here. It's the kind of random memory port out to the right hand side. Well, amazingly, what that is actually for is your M.2 connectors. So you've got one M.2 on this side, you've got another M.2 on this side, and what this does is it actually clips in just like a memory connector, and it goes up here. Now I know there are a lot of people going, oh, what's the point in that? Why is it not on the board? And you know, there's part of me that's going to agree. Well, the idea is that it's up here because, assuming that you're going to have some airflow blowing onto it, so it helps keep your M.2s cool, because they can get warm. Also, it's directly wired into the PCH, so rather than having them scattered all over the board, it actually helps keep things cleaner. I have asked a specific question about latency having is it going to make things any quicker, and I've not got any answers back yet. But they've obviously done it for more than a reason of not having M.2s around, because they could have, I'm sure they could have put it somewhere. But if you're going to be overclocking with it, are you really going to want an M.2? Does it matter? You know what I mean? There's all those type of things. But if you did, then you'll know that you're going to get it cool. If you did have it round the back, I'm just looking to see which one. This is actually M.2 one as well. If you did have it, you are still going to get some airflow around it, and it's going to be better than it laying flat on the board and being hidden out the way or being underneath graphics cards and the like. And the other thing, and this is something that's just come to me, if you think about, you might have your water-cooled graphics cards built in, or LN2 graphics cards built in around this area, so it would make it very difficult for you to be able to access the drive itself. By having it up here out of the way, it kind of has it removed from the possibility of it being blocked if it was water cooling. But if you were running dry ice or LN2 or helium or anything like that, you would actually have a drip issue when it thawed out, and you may run into problems with that, and you might have to cover your M.2s in Vaseline and all that sort of thing to try and stop any shorting issues. So by having this up here out the way, it does kind of solve that problem. So yes, I know for the kind of sticklers of you out there that are used to the boards, SSDs and stuff being down here out the way, I know people didn't like or don't like the vertical M.2s that are out there. This does actually solve quite a big problem for the enthusiasts and overclockers that do like to play with sub-zero temps. So it may not be for everyone, but do you know what I mean? This board is very kind of overclocking based, so that's the reason why they've probably, you know what I mean, they've gone to all this effort and done it. Do you like it? I don't know. We shall see. Okay, so we've not even booted the board yet. We've literally just turned the power switch on, and there are lights everywhere. They're actually behind the board. You can see them flashing away or going through the cycle. They're behind the chipset as well as a cutout on the chipset. You can see the cutout that I spoke about, and this is the one that you can customize yourself as well. There are also some underneath the chipset there. You can see it's kind of glowing in the corner, which is all kind of cool. But they literally are all the way around the board. Okay, so that bottom jumper just here, you can see it's moved over, they're all in line. Well, before they weren't. And the bottom one is to control the lights underneath this. So this is the light bar number 1, this is light bar number 2, and when you flick it across, I'm assuming natively this one comes off. Now you're going to be saying, oh, it doesn't look very nice because you can see the LEDs underneath, and you would be right, but they do come with these blanks, so that if you want you can cut them out yourself, or you've got there is a file that you can do so you can get some laser cut or decals made, whatever, so you can actually customize this yourself. So that's basically the standard Asus one, and then they do give you one that you can put there, and if you don't like it you can move this one down here and you can turn the LEDs off. Loads of options, lovely. Basically lighting on this is mental. Okay then, so we're going to do some talk about performance now, because you've had a look inside, you've seen the cutouts, you've seen all the lights, you've seen all those bits. Now we're on to the bit, I've finished my testing, so now I can talk to you about all of my experiences with it, and that's really where I hope to kind of set myself apart from everybody else, and that's with the fact that I really do get in depth with you and talk to you about all the stuff that we did with the board, and we found with the board, stuff we didn't like with the board, stuff we did like with the board. Now, have to say, right from the start, when I first saw the full speed headers for the fans on the board, I was kind of a bit like, oh, there seems to be a bit too many of them. I do still think there need to be more normal PWM headers on the boards, but the full speed ones, when you actually start really overclocking, they're amazing. The fact that they're just there. If you were an overclocker and you've spent some time benching in the past, and you've had it on a test rig or even in your case, and you know the kind of drama that you go through, you have to get into the software and turn all the fans up, or you have to do it through the BIOS, you have to mess around. Not with this. Literally just smash the fans in, bosh, away they go. 12 volts going through your fans, coursing through your fans. So they just go straight to 100%. I will admit, when I was testing the like the bleeding edge overclocks on this, which we'll cover in a sec, I did end up using them as well, and that was just because I knew that I wasn't going to have to worry and I wasn't going to have to mess around. I was pulling the CPU fan header out, smashed it in the 12 volt one. The ones in the front of the case, I pulled that out, and I even had a fan over the CPU area at one point with it going over the graphics card and down into the bottom one. So they've won me over, but I do still think there needs to be more normal ones on the board as well. Really, I think we're into kind of like almost a conclusion-y type thing, but I do need to talk to you about the overclock so that we can cover the results. So first things first, even with my phone going off in my pocket, again, Corsair last year, when I first said about Kaby Lake to them, I always like to kind of push the envelope a little bit with my tests, and they sorted me right out with some 4,266 megahertz memory here. It's Corsair LPX, you know, heat sinks over the top, but there's obviously some seriously lovely memory underneath, and they were just like, bosh, there you go, Tom. Now, during my Kaby Lake testing, most of the boards were getting 3866. When I had the code and the formula at the end, I tested the code and the formula on the 0701 BIOS. I did manage to see 4,000 megahertz. We did test at 4,000 megahertz as well, but for love nor money, I could not get anything else running. Manual volts, manual settings, you know, normal XMP, I could not get above 4,000 with that. You know, we never kind of got back to wire, but I may end up looping back to it at some point. This, literally, I kid you not, boys and girls at home, 4,266 megahertz XMP. Now, when you XMP stuff like that, it does auto set a lot of the volts. Now, this actually run XMP 4266 without any intervention whatsoever, lower than some of the other brands that I've seen manage to do 3866. It was immense. The system agent voltage is notoriously the one that can go, you know, rocket really high, and so is the VCCIO. Both of those were in the BIOS on auto below 1.3 volts. And when I ended up being able to manually tune them in, I ended up with the VCCIO on 1.2375. It was 1 notch below 1.25. And then the system agent voltage was just over 1.2 volts. That was 100% stable with 4,266 megahertz memory. Now, what you need to remember is if your memory's not as good as this, then you may need more. Your CPU may need more to be able to cope with it as well. But I'm obviously talking to you about the fact that I'm using the same CPU across the board. I'm using the same memory across the board, so I can compare the volts, you know, across the board, and it's all kind of directly comparable. So the volts that I managed to get running on this were insane, absolutely insane. They're the sort of volts that I was putting through to get the formula running at 4,000. This thing is mental. And the most critical thing that I can say to you about it as well, because I always get manufacturers, you know, other brands coming to me afterwards going, oh, it was obviously a special BIOS. No, I flashed it with the 0701 public BIOS that's on the Asus website before I started testing. So it's on the very latest BIOS that's available on the website. It's also the BIOS that's available to you guys. It wasn't anything special or anything like that. So it's literally the type of numbers that you can be expecting for yourself. So I've already said 4,266 megahertz memory. It's the first time I've seen above 4,000. It was a proper shocker. I didn't even know whether my CPU was going to be capable of it. I didn't know whether the memory was actually capable of it. It might say it on the sticker, but I've never seen it do it. So to get it and to see that, I was properly kind of, it set me back a little bit. So memory does 4,266. Go back into the BIOS, clear it. Why clear it, Tom? Well, now it's time to work on the CPU overclocks. You don't want to do both together. So working on the CPU overclocks, I have been benching pretty much everything at 5 gigahertz as a baseline. The occasional board has done 5.1, maybe a little bit shaky, maybe need a fair bit of volts. This 1.4 volts benched at 5.2 gigahertz. First time I've had 5.2 gigahertz stable to run any kind of bench, let alone passed an hour stress test of OCCT. It was, again, it was a moment when I was like, wow. Now, when you enable XMP for the 4,266 megahertz memory, what it does is it turns the base clock up to 103.2. Normally, when you play around with base clock, the board gets a little bit wibble, and it's probably why I've not been able to XMP any of the other boards to get up this high. It then turns the multiplier up a little bit, and you end up with the CPU running at like 4,600 and something. But anyway, it's the fact that it's running at 103.2 base clock is the critical thing. So we know it will do 5.2 gigahertz, and we know it will do 4,266 megahertz memory. So then I go about trying to get the two running together. And I ended up with a 50 multiplier with 103.2. And this was a stable clock, which gave me 5,160 megahertz on the overclock. If I went a little bit further, it was about 5.25. Now, it benched pretty much everything, but on OCCT, it kept failing around the 17-minute mark. I'm not quite sure what the process was that it was doing, but it didn't blue screen or anything like that. It just, OCCT chucked up an error. Sandra was also failing on the scientific analysis, and I couldn't get X265 to finish. So we backed it off, and we ended up benching it, like I said, 5.16, so 5.1 and a half basically. Again, at 1.4 volts set in the BIOS. It reads 1.408 in Windows, probably a little bit of load line calibration. But if I turn the load line calibration down from 5 to 4, it then was running at 1.392. So 5 was the kind of nice for the load line calibration. Now, don't take these settings that I'm kind of handing out to you and go smashing them into yours because you've bought the board, because that's really not the way to go about it. Lower volts won't need as high load line calibration. You do not want to be running volts willy-nilly either. I can't stress this enough. Lowest volts is critical, because if you get your volts down, your temperatures will come down as well. And also, I need quite a bit of extra volts because I'm running the mega high-speed memory as well, and it literally is like stressing the absolute bejesus out of it. So I know I say it a lot, but please, if you are going to buy something like this, then do put the time in to get the best from it. Because if you're just going to chuck, a few settings that you heard some random bloke in a room in the UK on it, you're really not going to be getting the best from it. And it's almost a shame that you've got it. You do need to put some effort in to get the best from it. So anyway, we got all those volts plumbed in, 5,160 megahertz, so over 5 gig with 4,266 memory in as well, and that was our bench. Temperatures were getting a bit on the toasty side. I was using the 12 volt headers, and we were still getting just above 80 degrees. So it's obviously something that you do need to spend time cooling. I was only using a H110i GT, but I was using maglev fans, and they were on max, so they were on 1800 RPM, so they made a hell of a lot of noise. But it was the fact that it managed to keep it stable and all in was absolutely unreal. I have had those kind of temperatures with other boards on lower clocks. And some of the other boards, I've even put 1.425 volts in some of the other boards to get 5.1 to kind of put these kind of numbers out there. So the fact it was keeping this all in check with all that memory in play as well was amazing. If it had a decent kind of water cooling system on it, then you probably wouldn't have to worry so much. But you are still going to need your fans kicking up to keep those kind of clocks in check. To be honest with you, those kind of clocks in check, that's like the limit of my silicon, really. That's why the volts are going up that daft. I can get 5 gigahertz on this at below 1.3. So the difference is kind of immense. Also, if I was to chuck the multiplier down another notch, it took us just above the 5 gigahertz mark. I could get that running at just below, with all the memory and everything, just below 1.35. So that's kind of how big the gaps are. And that's just the silicon, that's not the board, although the board, I can't express how easy this has made my life. So there's a lot to go on with the overclocks, but let's face it, its kind of bloodline is overclocking. And I need to kind of keep some of the thoughts that are bouncing around in my head at the moment, because I obviously don't script, to save for the conclusion. So we'll talk about some performance results now. Now, X265, I've given you all the numbers, 5.16 we got running, 4266 memory, 1.4 volts, Lovely. That was your overclock. Stock. All I do with stock, literally, is I've got some other LPX memory. It's 3200 megahertz. I pop it in, I enable XMP in the BIOS, I change nothing else, and I test everything that way. So now you know the difference between the two lots of tests that I'm going to show you up. So X265. Now, it's a bit of a mixed bag with this, and I will kind of, I will talk to you about it a little bit more at the end. So the stock results, it's kind of midships in the stock area of the graph, which is obviously the lower end of the graph. You can clearly see the code, both the strixes and the formula above it. When we talk about overclock, it's at the top of the graph, and there's a heck of a difference between the top of the graph and the next one down. When we talk about Cinebench, we go over again. You can see it's midships. It's all right stock, but the only things that are really there keeping it company, or above it, I should say, are other Asus boards. But you do get the Apex at the top again. Then when we move on to gaming, pretty much the same sort of thing. Midships for stock. The overclock right at the top, and you can see the numbers there. And also what you need, we're testing a few different games here. We've got Gears of War, Rise of the Tomb Raider and Total Warhammer. Now, one of the things I do need to say while we are midships is that we do a hell of a lot of testing on the main website. We don't just do this, we've got so many benchmarks. We don't test many games because it's a motherboard review, not a graphics card review. So we just test a few games for that. But there's like 20 odd pages on the website. So I skim through stuff here because what I do here is rather than talk to you about results, I actually take time to talk to you about all the volts, how easy it made my life, you know, what memory, this, that, do you know what I mean? The fact that I could lower the clock a little bit and I could lower the volts, that's when I spend all the extra little bits of time here. So the graphs are kind of just to give you something to kind of grab onto. If you're genuinely interested about buying it, after I've given you all my opinions, go and have a look at the rest of the results on the website. And then when we move on, and I saved this one for the end because it did seem like, oh, midships, and then it was always at the top. There was the occasional benchmark where it didn't top the graph with the overclock. And PC Mark Vantage was one of them, and the Gigabyte 270 Gaming Overclock, Gaming 7 actually smashed this one. But if I changed the graph and I was to bring up PC Mark 8, it's the same as all of the other ones. So there are the odd one where it kind of tripped itself up, but there wasn't many. So when we move on to a conclusion, one of the things I'm going to start with is the award. And to be honest with you, it's an award that I've not aired. I've not used it yet, although I've had it ever since we changed the awards and they went wonky. I had a whole new batch of awards made up. And you've pretty much seen the, you know, extreme aesthetics, you've seen performance, you've seen the enthusiast award. And to be honest with you, I could give this the enthusiast award. Now, there's only a couple of things I don't really like that much about this, but I'm going to tell you the award other than that. And I'm going to give it the OC3D Ultimate Award. Now, the reason why I'm giving it the Ultimate Award, this is like the white gold of old, but we obviously sacked off all the gold, bronze and silver ones, and we kind of like mixed it up a little bit. The white gold with this is because if you are planning on wanting to dabble with overclocks, I cannot believe how easy this is going to make your life. Don't think that this is something that you can go in and just make 2 little changes and then you're going to have the fastest rig out of all your mates. If you do that, to be honest with you, don't, you know, waste your money. Go and buy something else because, you know, I don't see the point in spending and buying something like this. It'll almost be like having a Lamborghini and then driving it on a country bumpy road all the time at 5 miles an hour. This really does deserve to be not used and abused, but kind of ridden like a racehorse and like really pushed and stressed. So the other thing, it's 299 quid. I mean, normally with the Maximus stuff, especially like Maximus Formula, I wouldn't blink if it was over £400. So the fact that they've not put all the tat in the box, like the useless overclock panel and all the other kind of bits and bobs that you don't particularly really need that much. And it's the type of thing that It's almost like a Magpie when you buy it. You know, you spend loads and loads of money and you get so excited about all these things that are in the box and then you don't ever really use them or they clutter your desk up. This is kind of stripped back. The best way I can explain what this board is really like is like you get an M3, BMW M3, it's amazing. And then they do a track version like the M3 CSL. It's got a carbon roof and it's got a roll cage, or what I would call a climbing frame in the back, and it's lowered suspension and it's lighter and it's more track kind of driven and it's tauter, but it still looks really pretty and you can drive it around town if you want. That's what this is like. It's an absolute animal if you really want to stress it, but because of all the lights and the stuff, it does kind of belong in a nice rig as well. I kind of see it as being the type of board that you might find in a show system or somebody that, you know, really wants something pretty on their desk, but also wants to have a real, you know, leggy overclock going on. Now, with the settings that I was using, with the cooling really, I wouldn't be able to have lived with that 24/7. But as I said to you, if you'd have knocked it back to 5 gigahertz with a 4,266 megahertz memory, the heat on the H110i just dropped like an absolute plum. It was mid-70s then with adaptive fans. So you could live with that. But if you had decent water cooling on it, you'd be able to run away with big overclocks anyway. So you know, in that respect, it's an absolute nut job. Now, I did show you about all the LEDs and stuff that are around the back because it does light up everywhere. Now, the other good thing about this is because of the jumpers and stuff, you can turn these off independently. You've still got the water cooling section down the bottom, so you can check the flow. You've also got a dedicated pump out. You've got the big overclock section up around the top. You know, there's so much that they've crammed on it, and because they've not filled the box up with stuff, they've managed to keep the price down. Now, don't make me, you know, I'm not saying £300 is a cheap board. But let's face it, you wouldn't get a board with this much on it, which is this capable and this kind of top graph worthy for 150 quid anymore. Because times have changed, markets have changed, you know, all the politics stuff comes into it. So the only real thing that I can say that I don't particularly like about it, and it's something that I know a lot of you are going to have commented on as well, is the M.2. But the reason why I don't like the M.2 is because the 24 pin is here. In fact, I want to come around and show you. I'm going to bring a memory stick so I can show you as well. Okay, so we have the M.2 here. This is the 24 pin. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's it, Tom. Get it so that you can actually see. So now I'm going to put this memory stick where the 24 pin would be, and maybe you can see a slight problem. Now, if the M.2 was up higher, it might not have been so much of a problem, but they decided to put that one high around the back. Now, I do get that because you wouldn't want this one hiding behind the memory and it being lower, but it, you know, it does, yeah. Anyway, so they put that there for cooling. It's also wired directly into the PCH from there as well. Now, the other thing is, and it was something that the Asus rep, when I spoke to him about it, he didn't kind of twig into why it's really there. And that's normally with the M.2s, you have them down in between the PCI Express slots. Sometimes they go down the sides. Down the sides is a better place if it's going to be an overclocking board. Because the problem is, if it's an overclocking board, you need to think about graphics cards. If you're dry icing, LN2ing, helium your graphics cards, or even water cooling your graphics cards, it's going to be in the way and you're not going to be able to get the graphics cards out to be able to swap the drives, which is a massive problem. So it's access. So being up there does make it more accessible. But the main thing, if you are LN2ing or anything sub-zero, you know, really dropping the temperatures down below ambient, you always get a problem of condensation. That's always, you know, that can always be an issue. And it's got to be a lot more difficult to be able to insulate a board when you've got extra bits of electronics that are sticking out all over the place. Are you really going to want to cover an M.2 drive in like Vaseline and stuff if you're running that sort of thing, or wedging loads of Vaseline in the port? Even if you're not running M.2, it's just something that you're not necessarily going to want cluttering up down there. So by being able to take those off there and put them remotely up there, saves all those condensation problems, saves swapping out problems if you are going to go water cooling and fill it up with, you know, some meaty water blocks and stuff. does make your life a lot easier. That's another reason why they've put the battery right the way over here, out the way, so that it's not going to be getting in the way too much. So up here, yes, it may not be the prettiest thing in the world, and I do think they could probably have made it look a little bit nicer, but I do get why they've done it. It's a shame there's not, like, for argument's sake, another M.2 port somewhere, or they didn't come up with some fancy cable that you could have done, so you could almost have had like your M.2 remotely off on something, like hanging off of the U.2 port that it's not got. But anyway, so that's there. Also, it's only got 2 memory channels. I know that's going to be something that a lot of you are going to go on about. Well, those 2 memory channels are super close to the CPU, so they do keep down the latency as well. And it's because it's only got those 2 channels, which is one of the reasons why it smashed that 4266. So the memory capabilities on this are just on another level. But also, if you're going to be buying this as a pretty rig to have on your desk and with all the lights on and all that sort of stuff, and you're thinking to yourself, oh, it's only got 2 memory slots, that's not going to be enough. You can still put 32 gig of RAM in that. We have got 16 gigabyte DIMMs now. So if you're really on about, you know, you need loads and loads and loads of memory, then you can do that. Although if you need loads and loads and loads of memory, you know, maybe you don't want a board that's like this anyway, and you might want to be looking somewhere else. As you've seen, I've got these sticks here. I've got 16 gigabyte of memory, 4266, and you've seen the scores that they've pumped out. It's, you know, you need to kind of decide. If you want more DIMM slots, then the board is blatantly not for you. But I would be confused as to why that might be the breaking point of it. So, to be fair, there are a lot of things that you do have to take and give a little bit of thought. But if you're looking for a rig that's got a little bit of difference, got, you know, the lights around the back, you're looking to build yourself a show rig. If you're looking for something to start your overclocking journey and really, really learn the DNA of your system and of your overclocking, I can genuinely say, bar the rampages when they first made an appearance and absolutely shook up the higher end kind of like 1366 market, when they come in and literally just unlocked things that we'd never seen in the processors before because of the amount of extra ability that we got. This has made, I'm properly impressed with it. Absolutely gobsmacked. And that is why I gave it the OC3D Ultimate Award. And it's thoroughly deserving of it. Results speak for themselves. Yes, the stock stuff was a little bit kind of mediocre. Normally stock is fixed with BIOS updates. Don't forget, there is only one BIOS on the website at the moment, and we've tested this super early. So I'd actually expect all those stock results to get much better. But obviously, if you buy a board like this, it's all about the overclocking, and it's got that ability in spades. So I'm going to leave you with that. I love it. Do you love it? There's lots of things that are going to split you, so I would love to hear about it underneath. But don't forget, if you are interested in all of this sort of stuff, come and join us and have a bit of a chat about it with a pint, you know, with friends, all that sort of stuff on the OC3D forums, because that's why we're there. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out. Now I know someone's just gone, he didn't say ding! Ding!